Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is my other co-host, John. But, John, we also have a guest today.
We do. We're really excited to have someone here for us, and it's going to be a great pod. This is someone I think a lot of people know very well. Very familiar with his work. We definitely have been longtime listeners at this point since they started up, and that is Eyes on Big. This is Big Kurt. Big Kurt, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, hello everyone. This is Big Kurt from the Eyes on Big podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Excited to be here. Excited to talk about Illinois football. Excited to talk about college football in general. So thanks for having me, fellas.
Yeah. Yes, thanks so much for coming on, fitting us into your busy schedule. So, John, anything you want to say before we launch right into it?
Yeah, as always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1G Sat, and you can find me, John, at Alibaba26. You can find me, Mike at Alibaba26, and me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And hey, Kurt, you want to tell them where they can find you?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me at B1G Kurt on the Twitters, and the podcast is Eyes on Big, also spelled with the one, B1G.
Yes, and we will have that in the notes of the episode. We will have the podcast linked so you can go right to it and listen to Eyes on Big in all its glory. I'm sure most of you probably already do, but if you're not familiar with it, it's a great look at Big Ten football from the perspective. They also, I think the thing that's similar, and one of the reasons why we were excited to have you on the show, Kurt, is because we are kind of the reason we exist is because we wanted to talk about the Big Ten from the perspective of all the teams, not just the helmet schools.
Yeah, good to hear. I mean, that's kind of the idea behind the Eyes on Big podcast. We started in 2018, and it was kind of born out of frustration with national coverage of the Big Ten that just focused on Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and maybe Iowa, Wisconsin, and then Nebraska, but then everybody else, you don't get any time at all. So we started with the idea that we wanted to cover every single Big Ten team equally, and that's what we've stuck to it, all these years. So
yeah, absolutely.
We really respect that and like that about what you guys do, and kind of what brought us to where we wanted to do as well. Like, you guys covered it, but I feel like it's still not as there just needs to be more people talking. Let's just put it that way. So we really wanted to help tag along with that. And we're just so glad that you guys do what you do, and that we get to be here talking with you about it, break down some of these other teams that don't get the spotlight as much as they should.
Yeah. So you guys have been doing it for a few years now, right? 2-3 years?
Two, yeah.
2 years. When we started, we were only the second Big Ten podcast that I knew of. There was the Bigger Ten. It's pretty popular. It's been running for a long time. So we were like number 2 and we were kind of frustrated with Bigger Ten. They do some good stuff, but they're kind of like national media. They do not cover the teams below the top
they don't
4
care.
or 5. So
they don't care.
Yeah. So that's, even though we both were listeners of the Bigger Ten, we wanted to do it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you do.
Yes,
I think I first discovered you guys, in that crazy 2020 season.
Okay.
And that's when I first, came around, and I was like, where has this been my entire life?
Yeah. That was the third season. Yep.
Yes. And so that was really cool. I should have discovered you earlier. We could have been on the ride for the 2019 season.
Oh,
but, yeah. Because that was a wild one. That was a fun one for sure.
Sure was.
But let's. Oh, go ahead.
Before we go, let's just mention your co-host as well. We didn't mention Jeffrey the Greek, so obviously we should, let us know about him too a little bit.
So, Eyes on Big podcast. My co-host is Jeffrey the Greek. We're the two main hosts. I have kind of pulled back a little bit during the season, and I've been replaced on a week-to-week basis during the season by a Michigan fan named Jordan Eggleston. So it's kind of the three of us now that carry the load. I do a lot of off-season stuff and then just kind of special episodes mostly now.
Yeah, great. Well, we love it when you're on, and you're missed when you're not. I
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. No hate to Jordan at all, but it's definitely not quite the same draw when Big Kurt's not on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk, because we are navel gazers. So as long as we have you on here, we're going to we're going to show you our coaching rankings. And we're curious about what you think about our rankings compared to how you see the Big Ten kind of breaking down. And I will be, so there we are. For those of you who are just listening audio, just to remind you, I'll be really quick. We had Ryan Day at 1, Kurt Signetti 2, Dan Lanning 3, Brett Bielema 4, James Franklin 5, Kirk Ferentz 6, PJ Fleck 7, Greg Schiano 8, Jonathan Smith 9, Jedfish 10, Lincoln Riley 11, Matt Rule 12, Sharon Moore 13, Luke Fickle 14, David Braun 15, tied with Mike Loxley, and then Deshaun Foster 17, Barry Odom 18.
So can I stop you there and ask, what were your criteria for ranking this? Because that kind of does come into play.
We wanted to focus a lot on Big Ten. What have you done in the Big Ten? And, to whatever extent, so we looked at, we obviously consider what people did before they were in the Big Ten, but we wanted to consider that. And one of the reasons why Bielema ended up so high, we've considered not just his Illinois time, but his Wisconsin time as well.
Okay, great. It sounds like a very similar criteria to what we did on the Eyes on Big. I have my own personal rankings that went into our overall rankings. I don't have the overall. I'd rather just speak to mine, though.
Yeah, no, tell us.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so you want me to run down the list?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll start at 18 and work my way up to 1. At 18, I've got Deshaun Foster. At 17, Sharon Moore. At 16, Mike Loxley. 15, Barry Odom. 14, Jed Fish. 13 is Fickle. Smith is at 12. I've got Lincoln Brisket Riley at number 11. I've got David Braun at 10. That's probably going to cause a ruckus. And then I've got Rule at 9, Signetti at 8, Schiano at 7. I've got your PJ Fleck at number 6. Bielema is 5, Franklin 4, Ferentz 3, Lanning 2, and as I call him, the Quaff, Ryan Day at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah,
so I'm it's interesting that we all put Lincoln Riley at 11.
Let's see.
Which is lower than most people do, but I can't. 4 and 5 in the Big Ten when you're coaching at USC is just not something I can get behind yet.
Yeah, and he did some great things obviously at Oklahoma, but it's been a tick.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And he had a large talent advantage at Oklahoma.
Sure. Yes.
That he does not, that is different than what he's had at, what he's had at USC.
And so I think that was the Big 12 as well at that time too. So,
right. Cause it was the Big 12.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I love that you had PJ Fleck ranked even higher than we did. And,
I was surprised that too.
That's amazing. I think. Oh, go ahead.
I have a lot of respect for PJ, and I have more respect for him probably every year. It seems like he builds a little more trust with me every single year. I think I always say in the cast that he's aged like a fine wine. Yeah. When he is interviewed now, he has some of the greatest little one-liners. I look forward to hearing him talk now.
Yeah, he's calmed a lot. I think he's settled. Yes. I think with PJ, the fact that he still has Mark Coyle as AD, I just think he's really comfortable. And I think that's been good. I'll be honest, I had at my very top Signetti and Bielema on my personal list.
Really?
And I justify that in saying that Signetti has never had a losing season ever. And he, in 1 year, did what Indiana couldn't do in the 40 years before, 50, 60 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
And that Bielema, he says, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this. He says that he got his PhD in football when he went to the NFL. And you can tell, his decision-making is better at Illinois in game than it ever was at Wisconsin.
I think no doubt. I don't think he's exaggerating or BSing when he says that, because you look at his time at Wisconsin when he was admittedly pretty young, and then even his time at Arkansas, he's a different coach than he was back then. He's much more humble, still likes to have fun, still likes to poke fun on Twitter and poke fun at the SEC coach across the sideline from him. But it's such a strange place for me to be, because I haven't seen an Illinois team this well coached since the early Ron Turner days, and that I'm dating myself here. I was a young man back then, but not that young. And
sure.
He coached about 4 good seasons, and then it just dove off a cliff after that. But that's the last time I can remember having really good coaching I could trust. So this is kind of a new experience for me.
Well, this isn't a surprise for us, like, and I'm sure not for you as well. Like, with what we saw Bielema do at Wisconsin, especially us as Gopher fans, we remember it and are traumatized by it forever. What he was able to do, but like nothing but the utmost respect, and it's funny too, like how he used to make me so mad, and I didn't like him at all. But now, like, kind of like you said, like a little bit like PJ, like they age like fine wine, and they become a little bit different. And Bielema is still very much Bielema. Like he's still got that attitude and that smirk and and like he loves just like getting other people going. And I now like I really have just a newfound appreciation, and I really I love hearing what he has to say. I love how he goes other coaches, how he talks to even the powers that be, the college football playoff committee and what's going on with like the playoff and all that. And we'll talk more about all that, but I just appreciate his candor and his ability to kind of call it and say it like it is. And obviously it really gave me so much joy watching the South Carolina bowl game. That was nothing. That was perfection.
I talked with my Illini friends about that game. It's one thing to be that brash in game. It's another thing to do it and then win the game against a team you're not supposed to be beating. And especially when it's an SEC team. It's again, I was like, I've never been in this position before as an Illini fan. I don't know what to do with all this joy.
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah, no, it was Shane Beamer was a little bit like my question was, as I saw him get more and more apoplectic on the sideline, I was like, what? And they're kind of holding him back. He's got the hold me back thing happening.
Yeah.
I was like, what did you think you're going to do if you catch Bielema? That's like the dog that caught the car. There is one, I said it on another podcast. There's one coach I'm taking over Bielema in a fight, and it's Luke Fickell, and it's only because he was a state champion wrestler like 4 times.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
So since you brought him up, I wanted to talk a little bit about Fick real quick.
Yes, yeah.
But then before I do that, Kurt Cignetti, he's an interesting one. I only had him at 8, even though I respect the hell out of what he's done. He's just not enough time in the Big Ten for me. And kind of similarly, I had Dan Lanning much lower than most people would have last year, but he really impressed me in his first year. And so I moved him up. But I wanted to mention Fickell. So our first coaches ranking, he did not make it very high because he hadn't coached a game yet. And we created what we call on our podcast, we created these Wisco Bros, we call them, that came out of the woodwork. We'd never seen any of them before. And all of a sudden we ranked Fickell not high enough for them, and they flipped out. And then we did our preseason predictions, and I predicted them 7-5 overall, 5-4 in the Big Ten. And I got bashed again. Well, what did they finish that year? They finished 7-5 overall, 5-4 in the Big Ten. And at the end of the season, I'm like, that's not a bad year. That for the year one changing the system.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a bad year. So
no, but Wisconsin fans, man, it's funny because Illinois, since we're talking about Illinois, was kind of the team that broke Wisconsin. You beat them and they fired Paul Chryst. That's right. I do wonder if there was like a little bit of hubris there with Wisconsin moving the way they did. John and I, we talk about with Wisconsin, it's not that he tried to change the offense for me. For me, it's that he tried to change the offense and the defense. And I'm like, you have a perennial top 5 or 10 defense. And like, you're going to throw it out because you'd rather have 4 guys on the line of scrimmage? Like, come on.
And he got rid of Leonard. He didn't keep Leonard.
That was mistake number 1.
Should have begged him to stay. Begged him to stay. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, he was always, him and Phil Parker pretty much were our 2 favorite, back then, were our 2 favorite coordinators in the Big Ten.
Yep. Yeah. Easy. I mean, it really does amaze me, like how he made such a gamble. And I thought too, like, and Mike and I both have talked about this as well, about how, when they hired Luke Fickell, like we were both like, oh great, like he was the star hire, and we thought that it was just going to be, Wisconsin was just going to take over, and they were going to be able to reinvent their offense and be able to have a massive amount of success because of.
Oh yeah, we are terrified, Kurt. We are terrified as Minnesota fans.
So we were pleasantly surprised when it just.
So it's gone so far. It's going great from our perspective. Yes. It's going awesome.
Congratulations, guys.
Well, and we probably know those Wisco bros too. They definitely come at us and make sure to comment on everything we say. That's for
it's a strange. One of the great things about doing a podcast, I'm sure you guys experience the same thing, is each fan base has its own personality, like an overall personality. And Wisconsin is so strange. I'm not sure they're the most unusual, but they're in the team picture because you've got some pretty diehard fans, but they're really Packers fans first and Wisconsin Badger fans second. And then you've got this whole, like I said, the Wisco bros coming out of the woodwork that have never even talked about Wisconsin football in their life, and now they're huge fans. Well, where were you 5 years ago when you guys were winning 10 games a year?
Yeah.
It's a strange, I don't know.
It's got shades of Nebraska. Got shades of Nebraska right now.
Yeah. There's.
Not saying he can't turn it around. Not saying he can't turn it around, but
yeah. No, same. I still have faith that he can do a good job there, and I think he made a good decision, kind of reverting back to more of their traditional style on offense.
Yeah. Well, this isn't a Wisconsin pod. We want.
No, it's not. It's not a pod about our coach rankings either. So I will get those off the screen, and we will go back.
Your insight on all of that, absolutely. So, but yeah, curious though. Just before we do move on entirely from that though, like why? Not that, I mean, I think we're pretty much on the same page, but like, why did you pick Bielema where you picked him? Why did you put him that high?
Yeah, why did I put him that high? So I had him at 5. I did take into account the Wisconsin years. I mean, to be honest with you, I look at it now, I can see him being higher.
Yeah.
Like at least above Franklin. Franklin's a great coach, I think. I think he gets like kind of bashed on a little too readily, but there is fairness in that he has not beaten a really good team in years now. He wins a lot of games. He just doesn't win the big ones. So I think that is a criticism. So I could see him going as high as 4. And then I wasn't ready to put him below PJ. I think he's just accomplished too much in his overall career versus PJ.
Agreed.
So,
yeah. We're with you.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I had him even higher than that. Deep down, our biggest fear in life is that Bielema would someday go to Iowa, but we'll talk. We won't talk about that right now. Let's get into
we can talk about it real quick. He just signed an extension.
So he'll stay forever. Tell me he's staying in Illinois for
I don't see him.
That's what I want to see.
He's 55 years old.
Yep.
You guys are younger than me. I'm 50. I can tell you when I'm 55, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to stay right where I'm at. Sure. And so, and where would he go? I guess Iowa is a possibility, but I don't think he leaves Illinois for Iowa. Now, of course, if Alabama comes calling, would he go? Maybe, but still, it's like, I don't know if I want to take that on at this point in my life. That's how I feel.
I wonder if like a school like Oklahoma, if you made the playoff this year, I'd be interested to see, like, he'd have to think about it, but I feel like there'd be a lot of reasons to stay in Champaign.
Yeah, I think so.
And isn't there also, anyways, I haven't seen anything definitively, but like there's also this, we've been told by people through Twitter that there's a clause in his contract that he's not compete or he can't go to another Big Ten school.
There's a clause about him not going to another Big Ten school. I'm sure
that's huge.
With enough money, you can probably change that. But yes, that is a clause in his contract.
Okay.
Well, it's better than when there was a clause in Lou Holtz's contract that he could leave for Notre Dame. It's better than that. I was too young for that, but my dad raised me to hate Lou Holtz just because of that.
I can tell you, I am not too young for that, and I remember those Gopher teams. I remember Ricky Foggy back in the day.
Wow,
that's cool.
Yeah, I remember watching him on TV.
That's great.
Wow.
So we I think one of the reasons why we talk about, and we'll to end the Bielema thing for now, obviously we'll talk about him more because he's Illinois' coach, but we can't overstate the way Lovie Smith drove the Illinois program into the ground.
I don't know if he drove it. Well,
so?
Let me stop you there. I don't know if he drove it any further than it had already been driven by Beckman.
Okay. Fair.
In fact, I would say he made it a little more respectable than Beckman. I think
Okay.
Lovey's a terrible college coach,
Yeah.
but there was some things he did do very well. And the biggest one is he was an incredible evaluator of talent. Just had a savant-like skill where, he'd be chasing the 4-star, and of course they wouldn't go to Illinois. And then he'd turn to a guy that's like ranked an 82. He's like, yeah, that guy will do just fine. And that guy ends up being Nate Hobbs or Sidney Brown or Chase Brown, one of those guys. So Devin Witherspoon's another one. Nobody wanted Witherspoon.
Right. Yeah, no, it's amazing. The NFL, the way, to evaluate talent and put guys in the NFL the way Bielema has. And I guess he inherited some of those guys from Lovey. And that's,
he did. So
sure.
Here's the thing. But Lovey couldn't do anything with them, but Bielema did.
Yeah.
And Bielema quickly, I mean, to go 5-7, 8-5, 5-7, 10-3. So that's taking a program that was in tough shape and like quickly getting 2 great seasons out of it.
Yep. I mean, it wasn't a great culture. It didn't seem like there was very good schemes in place. It's a miracle he came in. Not only did he come in, he lost very few players. They all said, no, I think I'd like to play for this guy, and started having success. Basically, that midway through that first year, they clicked, started playing really well on defense, and started executing a little better on offense. And ever since then, they've been a team to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. Awesome. So we move on and talk a little bit, talk offense, and we'll go through position groups and then talk overall, and then same with defense. And with the offense, we got to start talking with Barry Lunney, right? So it's been an up and down journey at times, but it felt like they took a big step forward last year. And I noticed they averaged 5.6 yards per play for the year, but in the last several games of the season, it was 6.7 yards per play. So Illinois felt like an offense that peaked. As the year went on, they kind of just got better and better and better. And go ahead.
I attribute that mostly to the offensive line play. Early in the season, I didn't think our offensive line was good. I thought they were below average to maybe even bad. By the end of the year, they were solid to good. So that's to me what turned that around. Yeah,
and that's a Bielema special, turn around an offensive line.
Yeah,
it is. Although I tell you, probably the biggest disappointment of his tenure so far at Illinois is his lack of ability to recruit and develop offensive linemen. He's had to go pluck them out of the portal, and then he just has these guys keep leaving, the guys that you get excited about when they're recruiting, and it just doesn't work out. But I mean, they did pull it together last year, so I give them a lot of credit there.
Right. And another thing, so Lunney has been really, really good and kind of getting better and better. I mean, let's start with, the whole O-line is back, the tight end's back, the quarterback is back. You've got experience back at running back, even though, you lost Josh McCray. But the only really question mark on offense feels like the 3 receiver spots. So let's start at QB and Luke Altmaier. And we got to tell you, Kurt, John and I have to eat crow because both of us, we're not believers after the 2023 season.
Okay.
We were not. In fact, we were, you should have been playing John Paddock all year, believers.
Yeah. Well, you guys were, yes.
We had a reason to think
we had reason to believe that from what we saw.
It's funny you mentioned John Paddock.
I was at that game, Kurt. It was painful.
Were you?
Oh, yeah.
I literally listened to an interview of John Paddock today on on the Illini podcast. It was pretty cool.
A great all-time Illini.
He absolutely is. I mean, you can't get more bang for your buck than that guy because he only played like 4 games. Small appearance in the Penn State game, but like 4 games in his career, and he had 2 of the greatest comeback victories in Illinois history.
Oh yeah, amazing. He was and
he had 500 yards against Indiana. I think it was the second most passing yards in Illinois history.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Well, a folk hero. John Paddock.
Absolutely.
But we were wrong about Altmaier. Your boy Bielema was correct because Luke Altmaier last season, 2,700 plus passing yards, 22 TDs, 6 picks, 61% completions, and a healthy 7.8 yards per attempt. I mean, talk about what it means to have Luke Altmaier back for another year when a lot of people were trying to pluck him from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that just did surface recently that he had several overtures for more money and he turned it down. So one of the things that Brett really liked about Luke is that he had 3 years of eligibility left. He wanted a guy that was going to be there multiple years. So being in a system for the third year with the same offensive coordinator, same head coach, that's another thing that I can't even wrap my head around as an Illinois fan. I don't think we've ever had that, or at least not since Kurt Kittner. Another reference to the Ron Turner era there. That's
right.
True. Ding, ding. But then back to Lunny, and you were asking about his development. I think so. He used to be at UTSA. Illinois played UTSA in Bielema's first year, 21.
Yep.
UTSA won. I wasn't even surprised. They had some really skilled wide receivers that we just they were killing us, and I think it really helps Barry Lunny to have a top-notch wide receiver or two out there. I think it just opens everything up for him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
which he's been able to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And and Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant. I mean, Pat Bryant especially. What a player he was. That was
amazing season. I mean, gosh. Okay, this is going to be reference 3. You got to go back to Brandon Lloyd in the Ron Turner era to find a better Illinois wide receiver, I think.
Okay. Wow, that's a callback for sure. Very cool. I love this. It's great. All right. So obviously you've got, I'd say arguably the best quarterback in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
In Luke Altmaier. I think, I would say there's no one I'm putting above him. When I look at what we've got, this year, there are guys who have high ceilings and whatever, but Luke Altmaier, you're going to get the accuracy and the decision-making, and he's so much quicker than you think he is. And it drives you crazy because he's just like, what do you call him on your podcast? Lukey legs or something?
When he's running, we call him Lukey legs. When he's throwing, we call him Nuke Altmaier.
Yep. Love that.
Love that. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
great.
he really does. His escapability, people forget until he does. He gets out of the pocket and he has some space. How fast he really can be. So
he's sneaky.
And he really improved his decision making last year. He was a little turnover prone the previous year. Mm-hmm. Some of those numbers were skewed because he had 4 or 5 interceptions in one game, but still, he just brought the interception total down. He was a big fumbler the previous year too. He did better at that last year. So that was probably his biggest progression for me.
Is just taking care of the ball.
Yeah.
That's what you want from your quarterback, right? Any coach, that's what you want. You want him to protect the quarterback. In Minnesota, PJ likes to say the ball is the program.
Yes, indeed. I have been in the practice facility and seen that on the wall.
Oh yeah. I've heard him scream it when people didn't treat the ball like the program. But,
by the way, you guys ever go for practices?
I do.
They are a blast.
They're so great.
Much fun.
They're so high energy. Oh, they're so much fun.
Oh my gosh.
And the music is pumping and everyone's sprinting in between and cheering and
they put on a show at practice. It's amazing. I highly recommend anyone in the Twin Cities area. Check it out.
No, it is. We don't want to make it about the Gophers, but it's it's crazy. And, so this will speak to what Bielema's doing. The way we're recruiting now is so much better than what, Glenn Mason or Jerry Kill ever could have done. And it feels like the way Bielema's recruiting now, especially in state and in that radius around, around Champaign is really impressive.
One of my frustrations until very recently has been the recruiting. I've been saying for years, Illinois recruiting is broken. I thought if the right person came in and did the right things, they could fix it. It wasn't happening in his first few years. I mean, he has been underwhelming as a recruiter. If you look at just rankings, that's changing. The rankings are starting to go up. We're starting to land more 4-star guys, and more importantly, high 3-star guys. That's how you're going to feast at Illinois. If you can get those guys, especially if they're in state, keep them home. He's doing a good job there too. So maybe it's finally turning around, and maybe he is fixing it. It
reminds me a lot. Season. It reminds me a lot of when D'Antonio took over for John L. Smith. And it was just, at first he got the scrappy underdog types and he won some games. And then at a certain point, the recruiting got better. Actually, at a certain point, the recruiting got so good that it kind of backfired.
Too good.
But that's a good problem to have.
Yes.
For where he got. I feel like Bielema's done that too.
The 2016 season recruiting class, I believe, is the one that just completely imploded.
Well, it's just having that continuity is a major, major deal at any program, especially a developmental program like Illinois or like Minnesota, or like that's such a important aspect. And I think Bielema definitely, he's very aware of that. And I think having his staff and keeping that together is going to be key to his success, continuing to move forward. So
yeah, we used to. Yeah. PJ's from there. I gotta cut in, John, and just say, we used to consider Illinois in-state recruiting almost, and it hurts me that Bielema's put up the border so much, because we were those first few years of PJ, we were pulling some guys from Illinois.
Well, Lovey was a recruiting buffoon, so it's been great to move on from that. Here's a little fun fact about Big Kurt and PJ Fleck. Where I was born, had we not moved, I would have gone to the same high school as PJ. Now, I'm a little bit older than him, so our paths wouldn't have crossed. I'd have been out of school by the time he got in. But Caneland High School, that would have been my high school.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. It's wild how small a world it is.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I played football with a guy who is now the defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills.
No kidding.
Yeah. And it was frustrating because he was a year in front of me and he was better than I was.
Yeah.
It's Bobby Babbage.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, to circle back, let's move on. I don't want to get caught up too. Let's talk about the running back situation. I'm really interested. You lost McCray to transfer, which is frustrating. Yeah. But this is a deep and talented room. Caden Fagan, Aiden Laffery, and now Khalil Valentine. Like, how do you see this room taking shape? Is Fagan finally healthy? Because, man, when he was healthy, that guy, when he gets ahead of steam, he's terrifying.
Yep.
Well, the Minnesota game a couple years ago was kind of his coming out party. When they hit him on that swing pass, and Tyler Nubin, who is a great safety, totally underestimated his speed, and he blew right by Nubin. He took the wrong angle, and he was gone. And that was when everyone started saying, "Oh, maybe we got something here." I want to start with Josh McCray. Losing Josh McCray really stinks for me personally. He had become my favorite Illini. He was our best all-around back. If you look, across the whole season, he's not the most explosive runner, but he did have a little more pop than in the past. He's a great pass receiver. He is a great pass blocker, and he's just consistent. And you can always count on him to get short yardage. And I have never seen anybody smarter than him picking a running lane. He was a wizard at it. It's like it was like a sixth sense. So sorry to see him go. I think the guy I'm counting on most is Aiden Laffery. Now, Aiden Laffery last year didn't have the greatest year. He had over 500 yards, almost 600, I believe. What none of us knew until the very end of the year is he was injured the whole year. We had heard all about how fast he was and how he was the best looking running back. And we're like, I don't know. I don't believe you. And then he came out and just looked, okay. He was injured. He was finally healthy in the Northwestern game. And look what he did in that Northwestern game. He broke it off. So I feel like he's our best bet as long as he stays healthy. Caden Fagan, to me, is like another Josh McCray, because I had given up on Josh. I had said he is never going to be healthy enough to give us any meaningful snaps. Yeah. I didn't even consider him part of the running back room. That's why he won me over. I feel like that's Caden Fagan. Can he stay healthy? I'm not convinced he can. And then Khalil, can he block anybody? Anybody. I don't care who it is, even if it's an infant in the stand. Can you block someone, please?
Fair. He's a young guy, though, so that could come.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, that's good to hear. Okay, let's talk about the tight end and the O-line. And I kind of grouped them together because you got them all coming back. Yeah. And they're all seniors except for about one lineman. And Tanner Arkin, has seen a lot, and so has the rest of this line. And I mean, what are your expectations for such a veteran battle-tested unit?
Yeah. So like I said previously in this podcast, I didn't think they were a very good line at the start of the year, but by the end of the year, and they did switch up the lineup a little bit. They moved Zy Chrysler out. They put Brandon Henderson in at the right guard position. Brandon looks more like a tackle, but he actually plugged in and played very well. By the end of the year, this unit was really gelling, especially in that bowl game. Tanner Arkin had a complete breakout year out of nowhere. That was fantastic. What probably non-Illini fans don't know is he was not slated to be our starting tight end. That was Cole Rusk. Cole Rusk was a transfer from Murray State, blew out his knee, didn't play a snap last year. He's healthy again. So I feel like it's possible we're going to have 2 pretty good tight ends as well.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Now, if there's any concern, I'm still not convinced we have good depth on the offensive line.
Okay.
So I was going to ask, that was going to be my next question is what do you think about the 6, 7, 8 guys? Like, is there anyone?
They brought in a few guys to kind of patch things up. So I think they could deal with an injury. 2 is now we're starting to, get a little iffy, but if they stay healthy, and that's something they did last year, not just the offensive line, the whole team stayed healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
If they can stay healthy, I think the offense is gonna be humming pretty good.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think so. And let's talk. We want to talk about the offense as a whole, but before we do that, let's talk about now wide receiver. This is the only place where I have any question marks, basically, on the entire. This and defensive line are my only question marks, really, for me. This whole Illini team.
I'm gonna tell you what. Then that means you follow the Illini pretty closely, because those are my 2 question marks too.
Yeah, right on. That's good. It's good. Hey,
So,
John, we get something right once in a while.
Yeah.
Tell all the Nebraska fans.
They don't believe us. Yeah, we don't know. We never know what we're talking about when it comes to Nebraska.
Yeah. So wide receiver, it's not that I'm concerned about them, because I think there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of guys with potential, but losing Bryant and Franklin, that's 109 catches from last year. The rest of the team combined didn't have 109 catches. With that said, the numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 wide receivers are returning, and they've all showed flashes. So we do need a couple of them to step up. And then we also brought in a couple transfers, Hudson Clement from West Virginia, Justin Bowick from Ball State. So I think there's enough possibilities that they'll get some production, but I'm not expecting another Pat Bryant.
Okay. So that was my question too. So do you see Hudson Clement? He had 741 yards, 51 catches, 5 TDs last year for West Virginia. He's a proven guy. You got Hank Beatty, who had about a little under 300 yards receiving. I guess I'm curious, it sounds like you see more of a committee this year as opposed to Pat Bryant being the star. How do you see the room shaking out? Whom do you expect to see, contributions from?
So I think probably the primary receiver is going to be either Colin Dixon or Malik Elzy. It depends.
Okay.
It depends if Malik, if where his confidence is at. That's the only problem he has. He's got plenty of talent. He's big. He's strong. He lost his confidence somewhere along the way, got the dropsies, and he just needs to get over that. I think if he does, he could be the number 1 receiver on the team. Hank Beatty will get a lot of catches. Another guy, it's not a great blocker. It keeps him off the field quite a bit. So hopefully Hudson Clement is a better blocker and maybe he might even get more snaps than Hank Beatty. But Hank Beatty is great in the return game. Love that guy.
Yeah, no, he's when we get to the specialist part, and there's a section to talk about specialists, Kurt, because I knew you would like that.
Okay, good.
Because that's important to you.
A name that they've been throwing out after spring ball is a freshman named Braden Trimble. So look for him to maybe get some meaningful snaps as well.
So even
Trimble, you said. Now, what kind of is he an outside guy or a slot guy, or what do you think?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say he's an outside guy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So even if there isn't like a Pat Bryant that rises to the top, you've got a pretty solid receiving core. I mean, you got to think that Altmaier is still going to be able to do a lot with that.
I think so. I mean, it's definitely a question mark. I just think, like I said, there's enough depth there. It's just not high quality. So I think it'll be like high floor, low ceiling type of wide receiver room.
Sure.
Okay.
So do you think the run pass balance from last year changes at all? Do you think you run the ball a little more or early in the year with the less proven wide receivers than offensive line and running backs?
So that's what I'm hoping. Now, one of the things that got me a little frustrated last year is it was clear they wanted to establish a running game. That's what they wanted to be, as a running team. And it wasn't working. And I was like, will you please just give up on it and throw the damn ball? And then they did. And then that opened up the running game. So we ended up throwing to open up the run. But I'm hoping with the veteran offensive line, we can go the other way and actually establish the run first to set up the pass.
Sure.
Yeah. No, that should be good. And with such a veteran unit, that just makes sense that you would ride them a little bit, especially early in the year when guys get are getting a little acclimated. So I guess as a whole, do you see this offense? How would you compare it like to last year's offense? Do you think it has a chance to be just as dynamic?
I mean, I think they'll probably, in terms of total yardage, I think they'll equal last year. I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, again, with Luke being a third year in the same system, he's gonna pull those wide receivers along, even if there is no Pat Bryant in there. And then I'll mention Cole Rusk again because they were so excited about that guy. So that's another outlet for him. Yeah. Awesome. So I do feel like total production will probably be similar to last year, maybe more on the running side than passing, though.
Yeah, we feel pretty similar, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, should we flip it over and talk some defense?
Yeah.
So after Ryan Walters left for Purdue a few years ago, DB's coach Aaron Henry was promoted, and it seems like Illinois hasn't missed a beat. Illinois was 31st in scoring D last year, despite facing some tough competition, returned a lot of production this fall. Outside linebacker Gabe. Okay. How do you say the last name?
It's so the J is silent. It's Akis.
Akis. Okay.
Gabe Akis. Yeah.
Something I was saying Yakis, but yeah. Okay. Akis. Gabe Akis. And then two-time all Big Ten DB Xavier Scott decided to return for another year. So that's a really good start to the defense. So let's talk about the D line, I guess, where we have the most, question marks. Illini graduated some important contributors here, but got help from Wisconsin transfers James Thompson and Kurt Neal.
Yeah.
So other than rating Madison for talent, who else do you see stepping up on the defensive line this year?
Well, Pat Farrell's probably the next name. He's a guy that's been a little undersized and has played sparingly here and there. We need him to take a leap, basically. Now, Akis will get down in the dirt and play that position sometimes too, and it actually did that quite a bit last year. So it depends how well Pat's playing. You could see Akis on the line as a defensive end in the three-man front. The other thing about Akis, he's so big. I don't really think he has the body of an outside linebacker. I'd kind of like to see him with his hand in the dirt this year.
Rushing the passer a little bit.
Yes. So they are counting on the Wisconsin guys, I think, to be starters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Both James Thompson and Kurt Neal, I think they expect to start or at least get, a lion's share of the snaps.
Right. That is great. And then are there any like upcoming players that we don't know yet who might burst onto the scene on the D line, do you think?
So I'm going to go with I'm actually going to move it to the outside linebacker because a lot of times they're essentially a 5-man front, sometimes a 4-man front. It just kind of changes. Joe Barna was a youngster last year who I just loved when he was on the field. He didn't get a ton of snaps, but you could tell he has, what he reminds me of is like an Iowa guy. One of those Iowa guys that nobody really recruits heavily. And then you're like, oh, well, this guy's not going to be any good. And then he starts playing. You're like, how did everyone miss on this guy? That's how I feel about Joe Barna. But he is technically in the linebacking group.
So that's interesting. So you think he's going to get some time, even though because you've got some experience at linebacker. Obviously, you've got both Akis back, but also Dylan Roziek. Yeah,
so Rozek is middle linebacker. They kind of separate him outside and middle because it's 4 linebackers. So they have Akis and Barner are outside linebackers. Rozek is a linebacker, as they call it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so he'll be in the middle. The one to look for there, I think, is Malachi Hood. He was a freshman last year out of Joliet Catholic. And he was really coming out at the end of the year. So I expect him to get more playing time. Rozek, he's fine and all, but he's a Midwest Mike. Even though he's not from the Midwest, he's kind of a try-hard guy, not the biggest guy, not the greatest athlete. He gets burned in pass coverage quite a bit, but then he'll make a huge game-changing play like sacking Nebraska in overtime to win the game and sacking Purdue in overtime to win the game as well. So love the guy.
Kind of like when Ohio State had Tough Borland or something, somebody who like made big plays, but was like not always the most athletic.
There you go. And then you got James Kreutz for some depth too. So they'll be okay at linebacker, but not great.
Okay. Very cool. And then, I mean, we got to talk about this secondary. I mean, 5 starters back. What
5 starters back, but also the top 8 defensive backs return.
Okay.
So they don't just have star power. They've got,
in this day and age, that's incredible to bring all those guys back.
So this is by far the strongest group on the team.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
I'd say so.
As long as we're talking about guys to look for, Tanner Heckel, they have been raving about this guy, freshman.
Okay.
He played 8-man football in Kansas. So as you can expect, he was not highly recruited. He's a quarterback and a defensive back. His quarterback statistics, now it's 8-man, so it's not exactly comparable. They're like, video game type numbers.
Right.
At quarterback. So, so they recruit him as a defensive back, probably assumed he was going to be a safety. He came in, he was so athletic. They said, no, he's a cornerback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. White guy too. We're following in Iowa's footsteps.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I guess so. That's crazy. That Cooper DeJean type, man. If there's something I've learned from following recruiting for a long time, it's that the smaller the town, the more likely you got a gem.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like because the guys who are in those areas that don't get recruited the same way, you know, they can slip through the cracks in a way that other guys just don't.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So yeah, very excited about the defensive backfield.
Yeah. So what do you think about the defense as a whole? Is this a top? It feels like this is a defense that could be a really elite unit.
Well, I have a lot of confidence in them. It reminds me a lot of last year, to be honest with you, because last year we had to plug and play on the defensive line as well. And I just remember thinking, oh boy, this is a bad situation. Brought in a bunch of transfers and they were pretty shaky early in the year, especially against the run. But another one like the offensive line, they started gelling. So we're kind of doing that again this year. We're starting over again. So I have at least some confidence. Terrence Jamison is the defensive line coach. I think he's a pretty good position coach. So I do think they'll be fine, but it might take a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I mean, especially if you've got guys who can cover and tackle in the secondary, it makes it a lot easier to get other guys up to speed.
Yep.
That's for sure. Because then you don't have to, you can play to stop the run a little bit and trust your DBs, back there. Yep. And we know Bielema's willing to do that. He had Ryan Walters there, so we know Bielema's willing to go press man when he has to.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So, yeah, it's fun.
Henry has not been doing that as much, but we haven't had the same talent to be able to do it either. So,
So maybe this year we'll see. Do you
maybe
have you heard anything out of practice to that effect?
No. So Bielema's practices are all closed, so you get very little information. He'll open them up for like 15 minutes here and there, and I think he had the spring game is open, but there's very little contact between the media and the actual team. So
what's a spring game?
Yeah, what's that?
Exactly.
I don't know. Right. As a Gopher fan, we don't know what a spring game is because PJ has gotten it canceled every year.
Pretty crafty the way he does that every year.
Every single year. Yeah, it's funny.
It's raining. Sure. No, PJ, it was raining 2 days ago. It's fine now. Field's still wet.
No. And then this year, I kind of felt bad because people would make like plans to come from out of state and then he would just cancel. Yeah. I'm glad he finally just said, you know what, we're not having them anymore.
Yeah.
It's about time.
And he's like, I'm going to let Matt Rule be the one to talk about it, but we're not going to have spring games anymore.
Can we all just stop and shed a tear for spring games? Remember that used to be really something that you got excited about.
Yes.
Oh, it was my favorite. Oh, man, Kurt, I still remember seeing Marquise Gray on Cork, a 65-yard touchdown pass, and thinking that we were going to the promised land with Tim Brewster. And that never quite came to fruition. But, man, I had a good time.
Yeah, you're welcome for Tim Brewster, by the way. Former Illini.
I know. The worst thing that happened to us this whole century. Yeah.
Well, and it was
Charlie Strong wanted the job.
Did he really?
Yes.
No kidding. Wow.
Yes, he did.
We were courting Lane Kiffin too, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
But
Lane Kiffin was never going to do anything more than stepping stone us.
No,
but Charlie Strong, if you had gotten him then pre-Louisville,
Yeah. Well, and I miss watching, being able to watch other teams too, like on the Big Ten Network.
Yes, and they would all be on Big Ten Network. And I could sit back and evaluate all of them and think I learned something, whether I did or not.
Yeah, but, and that's the thing. Who cares? Like, even if it's just, there's that recruit that I heard about. That's what he looks like. That was enough for me.
Yep.
Yes.
Same. Yeah.
Yes, I remember it was a spring game when I found out. I was like, "Oh, Tanner Morgan is our best quarterback." I had no idea. It's you find out those little things.
I watched.
It becomes exciting.
I watched a spring practice with him and Annexstat.
Yep.
And Annexstat had an absolute hose.
Yep.
I mean, he was launching the ball downfield, and I was like, "Well, there's your starter." And I was wrong.
Yeah. Tanner Morgan was just crazy. I mean, especially before he lost his offensive coordinator and his father, like Tanner Morgan was something else. He really was. And then, then we saddled him with a terrible offensive coordinator for a year and, whatever. But anyway, we're getting off track. We don't need to do that.
What were we talking about again?
Yeah, I don't even know how we got there. All right, so Illinois defense is going to be a salty unit. Defensive line got so early in the season, probably see some learning curve on the D line and at wide receiver. But it looks like, but other than that, it just seems like this Illinois team is ready to hit the ground running. And then I was like, okay, so maybe Illinois is going to be struggling at specialists, but no. David Alano returns at kicker, 17 of 20 last year. Yeah. And you stole Purdue's punter in Australian Keegan Crimmins, and you have a great return specialist in Hank Beatty. So right. I know special teams hold a special place in your heart, Kurt. So please wax poetic about what we're going to see this year from the Illinois specialists.
Yeah, so I'll start by just mentioning Robbie Disher. He's the special teams coordinator. He's been doing a pretty good job. Punting has been an issue, though. That's why they brought in Crimmins. And I know Purdue fans hated losing him, so I'm pretty excited about him. I don't expect him to be a Blake Hayes by any means, but he's got a boot. He can launch it pretty good, it sounds like. David Alano, guy out of Naperville North High School, is just Mr. Automatic almost.
17 out of 20. I mean, that's fantastic.
Doesn't have quite the leg like for distance yet, but he was young, so that can develop. And then Hank Beatty is the first legit punt returner at Illinois I can remember since like D'Angelo Bentley.
Wow. I don't even remember that reference.
That would be Zook years.
Zook years. Okay. Okay. Zook had some athletes.
You did. Yeah.
Zook had some athletes.
Bunch of athletes running around, didn't know what they were doing.
No, but you got that one awesome year with Juice Williams.
Yeah, it was fun. That was when Juice was healthy. What we didn't know is he really got banged up as his career went on, and he lost his ability to really run. And then once that was gone, it was over.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, that brings us through. So we've talked offense, defense, special teams, and now I think it's time to play a little game we like to call the schedule game. So let's talk about Illinois, and there we go. Awesome. So Illinois has a really favorable schedule.
Yes.
This year, and it's you look at those first few games. Let's talk out of conference. Western Illinois, that's a win. At Duke, that's a tricky game, and then Western Michigan, that's definitely a win. So really, in the out of conference section, that Duke game, everyone's talking about the Duke quarterback, but I just have a hard time believing that Duke is a coherent enough program at this time. Like, you're a more mature program than they are at this point.
Yeah, definitely more mature, but I always hate these games where you're traveling to one of the coasts or the other. Illinois historically does not play well in those. So this is a legit tough game for Illinois. I'm not expecting to win by any means. I'm expecting an absolute, slugfest out there. If we don't come away with the win, but still play fairly well, I think the season's still on track. But boy, it sure would be nice to start out 3-0.
Yeah, and I think you will. I just think, Duke doesn't seem that deep yet to me. I was looking over their roster a little bit, and it's it's year 2, right? Manny Diaz. So he doesn't have. I think he's still kind of putting together his stuff. So yeah, I think that'll be a tough game. But I've definitely got Illinois winning. So I assume you're going to be 3-0 going into a game that John and I have been talking about for like 6 months already.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to open Big Ten play September 20th at Indiana.
Yeah, and this is a game that I think if both teams take care of business and are 3-0, back in the day, this would have been like, oh, game day's going there. They're going to be there. I don't think it's going to happen anymore just because of the relationship with ESPN and the SEC
Sure.
and the non-relationship with the Big Ten. But back in the day, if that comes to fruition, that would be game day, and that would be spectacular. Because when have they ever gone to Bloomington? When have they ever gone to Champaign?
Right?
The answer is never.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would be, and I just think, looking at both Indiana and Illinois have kind of favorable schedules this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like the winner of this game kind of has the inside track to a great season.
Yeah. That's and a great coaching battle too, as we did the coaching, right? Signetti versus Bielema. So you get to see top-notch coaching in action.
Yeah. And oh man, I'm trying to, what do you think Signetti's even going to say before this game? He's going to say, boy, is he going to say, he's like, I don't know. I feel like he's going to say something incendiary, and it's going to be great.
Well, I hope so, because can you imagine the banter between him and Bielema?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I hope they're texting right now.
By the way, kudos to you for the official Illinois schedule that you're projecting here. That's from the Illinois football program. So
it is.
Kudos to you. It's not.
We try to do a few things right here, Kurt.
Yeah, you didn't just snip from ESPN.
No, we try to avoid giving ESPN any credit.
Yeah. No.
Even when I use them for research, I don't even acknowledge it. We used to actually, when we started this pod, we would use SP Plus all the time, and then Bill Connolly being at ESPN just kind of turned me off of that.
Yeah, I've had my spats with Bill, so I've kind of written him off.
Yeah. No, I think he did really great work for a really long time, but I think, just like everyone else at ESPN, he's got to kind of, he has to be a company man, and they're all company men at ESPN, but that is a conversation that could go way off the rails. So moving on, if Illinois can get that win, and I do think, you have the quarterback experience advantage. Like, I know Mendoza's pretty good, but he's in a whole new offense, new playmakers, new system. It's early in the year. I gotta think Illinois gets there, gets that win, gets to 4-0, and then Southern Cal. That's an interesting one. We had a fantastic time playing USC last year, but I have a feeling USC is going to be probably a tougher out this year than they were.
Yeah, I saw the USC play in Minneapolis, back in like 2010-ish. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Something like that, yeah.
2010, 2011, maybe, somewhere around there. I also have seen Southern Cal play in Champaign before. And was it 1995 or 96? I can't remember, but I was in school. I was an upperclassman.
Sure.
And, of course, you know what? It was 96 because they were coming off the Rose Bowl year. So, 1996. A year in which Illinois would finish 2-9, and you're playing the Pac-12 champs and Rose Bowl champs, and they roll into Champaign, and we take the opening kickoff, matriculate the ball down the field, kick a field goal. It's 3-0. We're all like, oh, this isn't going to be so hard. Final score, 55-3, USC.
Oof. Yeah.
The first Gopher game my dad ever took me to, Penn State beat us 56-3, and the highlight of the game was when Goldie Gopher punched out the Penn State Nittany Lion. That was as good as it got at that point.
But the Southern Cal game, I mean, obviously incredibly talented, so you could easily lose that game. But I love getting them at home. This is a team that you can beat, so I love having them at home. And I just trust Bielema a lot more than I do Riley right now. So I think we got a really good shot at winning that game.
So last year, go ahead, John.
Oh, well, that's our quibble with USC in general. It's not lack of talent. We went over this last year when Minnesota beat USC, and then obviously as we saw USC's season play out, I don't trust Lincoln at all. I don't trust Riley at all. I don't trust his ability to utilize his talent correctly. I don't trust Mayava either, especially against your DBs, your secondary. Like I think that could be a potential nightmare for USC at this point in time. And it's just there was at least, and maybe it won't happen this year, but there was definitely a level of hubris going into these games against teams such as Minnesota, such as Illinois, where I think there was an expectation that we would just roll over and it would be easy.
Right.
So obviously they found out the hard way last year that that's just not the case in the Big Ten, with the floor being much higher than what they expected. So I personally think that I don't expect them to go in with that mentality into Illinois. I would hope anyways that Lincoln would have a better idea about what he's facing. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if he went in with the same approach. And Bielema does what Bielema does. So
Lincoln Riley had an offensive line that was great at running, blocking, and struggled in pass pro, and he continued to throw the ball in the most key situations of every game. And I don't think he knows how to coach any other way. So like that passing game better be better. It better be improved this year, because if it's not, and also Kurt will tell you at this pod, we don't believe that Miller Moss was the problem.
Okay.
Like, I don't think Lincoln Riley was doing him any favors, and I bet you anything Miller Moss is going to go crazy at Louisville this year.
Okay, we're watching out for him.
Yeah. Whereas Maeva, man, I just see an interception machine. So maybe he gets that under control, but I kind of think that here's my big prediction for USC. At some point this season, Lincoln Riley is going to bench his quarterback again and go to the freshman, the 5-star Longstreet.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So Southern California, that's a game that I think you guys should win. But it's always tough to play them with the talent they have. Then you go to West Lafayette to play the Boilermakers. Probably don't have to talk much about that game. Purdue.
Well,
Barry Odom's a good coach.
I'll talk a little bit about it. This is something that non-Illinois fans probably don't realize, but Purdue has absolutely owned Illinois in football in the last 20 or so years. I don't remember. I'm probably going to get the numbers wrong, but they had won something like 14 out of the previous 18 games before last year. Oh, wow. And then we all know how bad Purdue was last year and how good Illinois was. And it took us overtime to beat them, and we gave up 49 points to them. I mean, it was our biggest point total output given up on the entire season. So even though we won that game, I was still freaking angry afterwards. Which was so ugly. So that I'm not taking that Purdue game for granted.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's fair.
You can't really take. I mean, we talk about this too. Like, as bad as some teams may, the perception is in the Big Ten, anyone can really come up and get you at any point in time. And is the reality of it. Like I said before, the floor in the Big Ten is a lot higher than what people assume it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. No, you're right. And Purdue, Barry Odom's bringing in a lot of guys. They'll be more competitive than they were last year for sure. Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting one. That said, if you have to, gun to my head, I'm comfortably picking Illinois in that game, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So you go then, you host Ohio State, and there's a decent chance you're undefeated at that point. Or one loss, somewhere between 0 and 1 losses. Like, I feel like there's a really good shot at that. And, that could be, playing Ohio State. If you're, say you're undefeated or have just the 1 loss, somehow it could both be ranked. I mean, this could be a really, or should be a really big game.
Yeah. And with Ohio State actually replacing a lot of their roster, it would have been nice to get them a little earlier in the season. And the other thing I don't like about this game is, when you're a fan of a middling program like Illinois, you kind of think the opposite on scheduling a lot of times. I want the best teams. I want to play them on the road because we're probably not going to win anyway. So why throw away a home game for it? I don't like playing them at home. I wish, but that's about the only complaint I have with this entire schedule this year. Like you mentioned, it is very manageable. But yeah, it's not out of the realm of the possibility that Illinois wins this game. I don't expect that by any means. Haven't beat them since 2007. You had already referenced that team, the Juice Williams team. So I'm not expecting it, but there's an outside shot. It could happen. First win since 2007.
Yeah,
we haven't gotten them since 2001, so we feel you.
2001. Okay.
Yeah. That was Ron Johnson when he was unstoppable.
Oh, sure. I remember him.
Yeah, he torched Ohio State, but here's the thing. It drives me crazy about Ohio State. I feel like PJ tries to beat everybody else, But PJ Fleck, I feel like against Ohio State, he's like, let's just try to get out of this without getting too injured.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, we're going to run the ball up the middle and like grind clock and like, yeah, we're probably going to lose. And that's
get out of here as fast as possible.
So I hope Bielema does not take that approach. I hope Bielema takes a run at him because I do think Ohio State with you never know with a Frosh QB.
Yeah,
or with
an
inexperienced QB.
Yeah.
And Julian saying, who knows, especially with the secondary you have, you could confuse him.
True too.
You could trick him. There's a lot of things that could happen. So that's a game I've got circled. And then probably the best part of the schedule for all of you guys is that you have a bye before you have to take on a really dangerous Washington team.
Well, that's the saving grace of that game is that there's a bye in there. I absolutely hate this game. This is my least favorite game on the entire schedule. This is a game Illinois just doesn't win historically. I was mentioning going across to Coast Duke. We're even worse when we go the other direction and visit the West Coast. And Washington was better than I expected them to be last year. It sounds like they're much improved from last year. That is going to be a tough out. I do not expect a victory. I expect a loss that weekend.
Yeah, Washington, I think, has the best quarterback, running back, wide receiver trio maybe in the Big Ten.
Okay.
Because Jonah Coleman is special. Damon Williams is coming up hard. And is it Boston? Yeah, he's legit too. So, yeah, they're dangerous. I'm a little skeptical of them on the line of scrimmage still.
Okay.
I think there could be a little vulnerable there, but they'll be better than they were last year. And last year, I think that's really where they struggled was up front. So yeah, that's a dangerous game. So yeah, that's for sure a potential loss. But then, you host Rutgers you host Rutgers. So that's a good game to have at home. Rutgers, man, that is a hard team for me to project this year because they don't have Kyle Monangai, but I did like the backup running back in the bowl game a lot, the freshman Raymond. But I also, John and I, no matter how well he plays at times, I just can't get behind Ethan Kaliakmanis as like believing he's going to win a big game when you need him to.
Yeah, Ethan's never done anything to show that he's more than just a mediocre quarterback. Who knows? It's happened before. Guys, play for 3 years, don't look that good, then take a sudden leap there last year. It just doesn't happen that often. I don't expect it, but I love that we get this game at home because on the road, I wouldn't feel very confident. I feel pretty good with them coming to Champaign.
Well, we also have no confidence in Rutgers' new defensive coordinator, Rob Smith. So,
there's an Illinois connection right there with Minnesota.
Yeah.
You're talking about Bielema breaking Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That in 2018, I think it was the year.
It was 2018.
We basically got Rob Smith fired.
You did, and it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
It was. Yes, you guys turned it around after that.
Joe Rossi immediately. Man, those guys, his players were so confused all the time. And he was trying to do some sort of really complex NFL style like reading, and it just did not work. So the only thing I'll say about Rob Smith is if John's point is always if anyone can make him successful, it'll be Greg Schiano.
Yeah.
Because that defense is his baby. But it also won't surprise me if Rob Smith is fired by the time you play Rutgers.
Okay.
I'm leaving that on the table. That's something I think when we put our bold predictions out, that was one for me that I think he's going to get, because I just can't believe that he's competent in any way. So you get Rutgers at home. I think you probably win that one. So you could be, sitting here pretty with, 1-2 losses. And then you get into the home stretch. You get a nice bye week to get ready for Maryland. Who knows what kind of condition Maryland's going to be in by the time you play them. I mean, that program's in tough shape.
Yes, getting them at the end of the year is probably good for Illinois. Yeah, I hate like bashing any program or any coach, and I like Loxley. He was the offensive coordinator for that 07 victory.
Mike Loxley.
Yeah, we love him. We call him Uncle Mike on this podcast.
Okay, I mean, I think he's a character. I enjoy having him in the Big Ten, but I do get the feeling that he's heading to crash into the ground here. I feel like this is the start of the end. So I feel like that should be a victory for Illinois.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And I'm not even sure if Loxley's still going to be the coach at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
They have a really tough 4 or 5 games in a row in the middle of the season. I could see them cutting bait at that point. Maryland in the new Big Ten, Kurt, we talk about how when NIL matters, until Maryland and Purdue can improve their NIL, it's going to be hard for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
they both got rated. I mean, both both of our teams stole from Purdue.
And we're about to talk about another one. Northwestern is in a similar place. Like, not that they got rated, because I don't think anybody wanted what they had, but they're going to struggle unless they can pick up their NIL.
Yep. No, I agree with that. All right. So then you've got at Wisconsin. Now that's a game that could be. So I imagine, let's say you're right and you lose to Ohio State and you lose to Washington. But I'm also right about those other games. So you're sitting there with 2 losses. Suddenly, you're playing at Wisconsin. That could be the difference between whether or not you make the college football playoff or not.
Yeah,
that Northwestern game at the end.
If they indeed only have 2 losses, I find it hard to believe that they would lose at Wisconsin,
right? Especially
because Brett's the head coach. But I'm definitely scared of that game.
Yeah.
With the changes that Wisconsin's made, I still have that Illini fan PTSD of them dominating us for the last 30 years. So it's just hard to believe that they can stay down where they've been the last couple of years. And getting them on the road too. So that one, the other thing, they may not have a good record coming into that game because their schedule's so freaking hard, but they may be way better than what their record says. So it's a game where you could overlook them.
For sure. It's they brought in so much in the portal. Wisconsin is going to be a team that probably plays a lot better at the end of the year than they do at the beginning of the year.
That's right.
So, that'll be an interesting one. I'm hoping that you soften them up for us in that one, that you really take their best shot, and so that they're, tired by the time they roll up to us. And then you finish against Northwestern, which, unless Preston Stone is better than I think he is, man, David Braun did a great job in year 1, but it just seems like that's going the wrong direction too.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, I have PTSD with Northwestern as well, but I think I'm getting over that. Like I used to just look at that and say, well, okay, even if we're like, say, I don't know, 6-5 going to that game, or better yet, 5-6 going into that game with the chance to go to a bowl game. Oh no, we're going to lose that game. But I look at them now on the schedule and I feel pretty good. I think we get the job done there, no matter really. I don't want to guarantee anything because it's Northwestern, but no matter what happens, I feel like Illinois wins that game.
No, I think you're going to run them off the field. I think it's going to be ugly. I think David Braun's going to be looking for another job. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be Braun and Loxley who get fired this year about Big Ten teams. And then I think USC and Wisconsin might want to fire their coaches, but I don't think they have the money to do it.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. But so Illinois, we talked about it before, but it just seems like everything, when you play the schedule game, when you look at what's returning, when you look at the top end talent, when you look at where the stars are, man, the stars have kind of aligned, Kurt, for Illinois to make a magic run this year, potentially.
Yeah. There's a lot of orange Kool-Aid being consumed in Champaign right now.
Yeah. I believe
high. Now
I saw that the season tickets also have sold more than you have in a long time too.
Yeah, they sold out. It's the first time that we've sold out season tickets, and gosh, probably since the Zook years.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really incredible. But go on, you were going to say something else, Kurt. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I just wanted to get to like an overall season prediction from me.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the way I look at it, I see 5 games that they should definitely win.
Okay.
I see 1 game, Ohio State, that they should definitely lose. I almost put Washington in there. I didn't, but they have a shot against Washington, so I didn't throw it in there. That leaves 6 games. What do I think is going to happen in those 6 games? Well, last year, did you know that Illinois was 5-1 in 1-score games? So when they played a team that they were kind of on the same level with, they took care of business for the most part. The one being Minnesota, it was an 8-point margin, but I'm still counting that as a 1-score game.
That's a 1-score game. That's a 1-score game. Yeah.
I just think that's going to regress back to the mean. You don't usually do that 2 years in a row. So with those 6 games, I'm tossing them up 3-3. So I have an 8-4 prediction for the regular season.
Interesting. That is, I mean, that makes sense. And from a math perspective, you're probably correct. But I don't know. I'm gonna pick Illinois to go 10-2, just so you know. That's where I'm.
All right. Yeah, I love it.
And here's the thing. Bielema outcoached those coaches. It wasn't just luck. You know what I mean?
No, that's true.
True. He made Greg Schiano look stupid. It just looked foolish.
The most impressive thing. Yeah, he did that. Boy, did he ever. That was crazy. The most impressive thing he did to me last year was in the first half of the year, we were not very good on the offensive line or defensive line, and we kept winning ball games. Mm-hmm. When does that ever happen?
Yeah, right. That's coaching, man. That's. And I mean, I'm with Mike here. I think the floor is 8-4. To be honest with you, maybe I could see an argument for 7-5, but it seems like a 9-10 win season seems like a lock to me with this team. At least as long as you can stay healthy. If you can pull that off like you did last year, I don't see how it couldn't be anything else. I mean, they're definitely my dark horse pick in the Big Ten for the college football playoff at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they have a shot to make. I could definitely see them winning 10 games. I just. Having watched Illinois for 50 years of my life, I know better than to predict that.
Yeah, we know how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. We
all right. It. Well, Kurt, you have given us so much of your time. I know it's getting late. We appreciate you. Sorry if we had a little technical difficulty beforehand, so we appreciate you rolling with us and being so generous with your time. Once again, just say your podcast, where they can find you, and thank you again so much for being here.
Yes. So again, it's the Eyes on Big podcast. The Big spelled like Big Ten B1G. So EYESON B1G. Eyes on Big is the podcast, and we cover all 18 teams. We give basically everyone equal time. Yes, we do have a game of the week that we'll spend a little more time on than other games, but we want to talk about all 18 teams. So it's a great resource, regardless of who you cheer for, to learn about the other teams, so, much like your podcast here. So yeah, I think it's like kind of, in the old days, going and picking up the Encyclopedia Britannica for the Big Ten.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
All right, I love that.
Did I just age myself there?
No. That was great.
Understood.
We're millennials too. It's not like we're babies here.
Yeah. So elder millennials, but yeah.
There you
go. Yeah. All right, Kurt. Well, thank you so much. And
thanks, guys.
Have an awesome night, and we'll talk to you soon.
A lot of fun, guys. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Take care.
All right.
That was really fun.
That was great.
Kurt was beyond generous with his time. I felt a little bad that we kept him for 75 minutes after it took us 17 minutes to get started because we had StreamYard issues, everyone. Yeah. So give if you see this on social media, give Kurt some extra love for being so generous and wonderful. And we really appreciate it.
Yeah, please. Yeah, absolutely. We do really appreciate it. Please, everybody, give him a follow. And Eyes on Big Ten as well. He does a great job. They all do a great job over there. It was a pleasure having him on. He's got a wealth of knowledge, obviously, especially with all things Big Ten, but with Illinois, and just the history too that he can put behind it.
All things Big Ten, man. He was pulling out references that I couldn't even, I like to think that I can usually pick up most of the obscure player references, but no, he was pulling some out of the vault.
I love it, man. It was a great episode.
No, it was great. And I do think, he's like, statistically, he's probably right that technically you should regress to a mean. If you go 5-1, you're more like in one score games, you're more likely to go 3-3, whatever. Sure. But Luke Altmaier's a senior, man. And all those offensive linemen are seniors, and the tight end and the running backs are experienced, and the defensive backs are fantastic, and they have an all-star linebacker. And the defensive line, there are some question marks, and wide receiver, there are some question marks, but there's so many answers too. There are a lot of answers in this team, and I just have a hard time believing that they're not going to have an advantage over most teams because of how experienced they are.
Well, and again, we've talked about this many times. We've mentioned this, ad nauseum, but like we have learned our lesson a long time ago that you just never doubt Brett Bielema. You just don't.
No.
You don't doubt him. You
No.
don't doubt his abilities and his as a coach, and to make a team like this, especially with this much talent and experience, to be able to go as far as we think they can. I don't think I'm not saying there's a guarantee it will happen. Clearly, obviously, like we mentioned, injuries could be a factor, or whatever outstanding circumstances that we just may not be aware of at this time. But like
it's football. Anything could happen.
But if they have a season similar to last year, dude, there is no reason at all in my mind that I can see right now that I'd be putting any doubt that they couldn't reach 9-10 wins in pretty easily.
I mean, if the balls bounce correctly, they could win 11 games.
It's possible. Yeah.
Like if they, they win, they beat Indiana, beat USC, and beat Washington.
Yeah.
If they can win those 3 games,
I mean, I only see, for me, the only way they go 9-3 is like, obviously Ohio State, and I think Washington is a good one to count.
Washington's a tough game.
As a
That's
loss.
a tough
game. So yeah. I understand that where his point of view, and I could see Wisconsin maybe jump up and bite them, or something like that, later in the season, and they're just not as focused or whatever. I mean, that stuff kind of happens, when we saw Maryland and USC last year and all that kind of stuff. No, I never, we didn't pick Maryland to beat USC.
No.
So strange things happen.
Yeah.
But I don't see any worse than 8-4, but it's really even hard for me to see 4 losses. I don't
know
even where that fourth one would come
on that
from,
schedule. Really. I mean, Ohio State is the only truly top tier team they play.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody else is in a similar talent sphere, and Illinois just has the experience and has the better quarterback and against everybody except for maybe Washington. And we don't know, like Damon Williams is really talented. We don't know how consistent he is. Exactly. We haven't seen him play enough,
Yeah.
So I that Washington game could be a lot of things, but regardless of what happens, whether they go 8-4 or 10-2 and make the playoff, Illinois is in a really good spot with Brett Bielema. And, after decades of struggle, and being, at times not even really competitive for a lot of games, John, we used to chalk up Illinois as a win every time we played them. We're like, oh, Illinois, that's going to be, that's going to be a win. Not worried about it. But they've come a long way as a program, and they're not just a basketball school anymore,
No. And honestly, and this is what, warms my heart when it comes to Illinois, when it comes to Indiana and stuff like that. These old school, original Big Ten programs that have been, continuously told that they're never going to be anything but bottom dwellers and at best, middling programs, which, in some, maybe, in certain way they are, I guess, but but to see them have these rises like this and finding that consistency with coaching and talent and stuff like that coming in, it gives you hope. And that's what we love. We love to see that. We want to see the floor of the Big Ten get higher and higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
Obviously there's always going to be the Ohio States, Penn States, Michigans, Oregon, whatever, we love to see every team succeed, for the most part. Rivals withstanding, but even still, we have respect for them. But it's a good thing, and I think Brett Bielema, in the long run, is for the conference as a whole is a fantastic thing to have, and having him in the Big Ten, I think not only as a head coach, but I think as just an ambassador for the conference is fantastic too. So.
No, I agree. And and as Big Kurt pointed out, he just signed a giant extension. So
love that.
So he's probably going to be in Champaign for a long time, making our life stressful. But we don't play them this year, so I'm not that worried about it.
Well, I'd rather it be there than him have the ability to somehow take over.
Oh, go to Iowa?
Yeah. If he's in Champaign and he bothers us every time we play him, fine. As long as it's not Iowa. Or Wisconsin again.
Because we don't have to play Illinois every year. We have to play Iowa every year.
Yes. So
right on.
Yeah, man.
All right, John, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
As always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1G Sat. You can find Mike here at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can email us, We Live for Saturday, B1G@gmail.com. And once again, thank you again, Big Kurt. We really appreciate you coming on. Everyone go check out Eyes on Big and all of their wonderful work. They've got a huge library.
Yeah. And check that out. And please subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. We're gonna have a guest on for all 18 Big Ten teams this summer. We're gonna do an in-depth preview, just like we just did with Illinois. We're gonna do for every team in the Big Ten. So get excited, get pumped, and follow. If you're new to the podcast, check it out, because we're gonna preview everybody in just as much depth as we went into. And we have some awesome guests lined up to come on who are big time experts, who have big time followings and podcasts, and our official media journalists. And we have all kinds of awesome people coming on.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Well, if you are still with us, you are my hero. Thank you so much. And we will see you in the next one, which will only be in a few days. So keep a lookout for it.